Hello everybody, Carol Garrison with Carol's Creative Escape. It is time for another Make It Monday. Today is Monday, August 14th, and again I thank you for taking time out of your schedule to watch this video, whether you're watching it in person or on replay. I appreciate you taking your time either way. I have been a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator for about 10.5 years, and currently I am working just to make cards, to spread joy. As my theme or my motto is one card at a time. I've been making cards actually for 30 years, primarily using Stampin' Up! Products for the last 10 years. And excited to share with you kind of a fun fold card that features stamping, also features some designer series paper, which you know I like to use as well. And just adding a little flair to the card with a little bit of a fun cutting design too. Hi Linda, thanks for joining in. I hope everybody had a great week this past week. It's kind of a busy week just with work and everything. Yesterday I did get to spend time with my son and his family, which included spending time with Cece, which if you have grandchildren, you just know how special that time is. She's just starting to learn. I don't want to say learn how to talk because she's been using some words, but she's starting to put her words together and creating sentences. So her big one yesterday is, where are you? Where are you? And one time it was even, Daddy, where are you? So it's just fun to watch her progression as well. I am featuring a card tonight using the inked and tiled stamp set along with the Ink Botanicals Designer Series paper. It's been a few weeks since I've used this one. And I would like to just go ahead and get started. So let me switch my camera over, and I apologize ahead of time for any bouncing around that may occur. I've thought about making changes to my system, but this really works pretty well for me right now. And I guess I'm just not quite ready to make any other kind of change to my system. I'm just got to pull this up here, make sure I'm live on my right Facebook page too. Get my fancy camera stand out of the way. And let's go ahead and get started here. So the card, like I said, it's going to feature the inked and tiled stamp set along with the Ink Botanicals Designer Series paper. And that is found on pages 94 and 95 in the annual catalog. There is actually a bundle you can purchase that includes the stamp sets and these two punches. I opted to not get the bundle, but instead I just have the stamp set and the beautiful Ink Botanicals Designer Series paper. And so that's what we're going to work with here today. The other products that I'm using include the gold and vanilla 3/8 inch satin ribbon, and that's just to take and make a little bow on our card. And then finally, I am using the Stylish Shapes dies that are found on page 167, and these are just stitch shapes that make a great window for the card that we're working on tonight. So not a whole lot of products being used, but I'm excited still to share the card because I think it shows you how you can use just a few things and create a little bit of wow factor. So what I need for this card is a piece of cardstock that measures 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. I am using Lost Lagoon as my color. And then I also have a piece of very vanilla cardstock, which is kind of uncommon. And the reason for that is the cardstock or the designer series paper has a lot of very vanilla in it. So I am using that. This piece measures 5 1/4 by 8, and it is scored at 4 inches and again at 6 inches. And then I have a piece of designer series paper that measures 4 by 5 1/4. And another piece that measures 1 3/4 by 5 inches. And then I just used a scrap of designer series paper of very vanilla to create the circle. And I have another scrap that I'm using for my stamped sentiment as well. And that is all that we need. So it's not a lot of pieces. It's not a lot of extra stuff, but it makes, I think, a really cool card, and this is the card that we're making. So you can see that I've die cut a window out of this piece, and I've reused that piece to add the view that we see from our window. And then I've just used the little Just a Note stamp from our stamp set for this particular card and inked up this floral image to put on that circle that we've created. So let me show you real quick how to do this. Again, like so much of the card making that I do, it's cards with wow. Elegantly simple is kind of the phrase I use to describe my cards. They look like they have a bit of pow to them, the wow factor, but at the same time, they aren't hard to make. And that's kind of my goal, is to make sure I'm creating cards that you could make yourself. So let me go ahead and start assembling the card. Hi, Cindy. Thanks for joining in. I appreciate it. And then show you how to assemble the card. Now, one thing I want to mention is on this front piece that we're going to adhere to the front of the card before we do any die cutting or anything. So I want to make sure that you only put adhesive right around the edges. And the reason for that is we're going to be die cutting the center out. And I would like to keep that circle loose so that I am able to use it on another card. You'll see that you get a little scrap from that. So I'm going to go ahead and center this. And again, remember the tip about looking at the diagonal corners and making sure that spacing is even, because that pretty much sets up the spacing to be even all the way around. So we folded it along the score line, we've burnished it, and now it's time to do the die cutting. So let me grab my big shot, or not my big shot, my cut and emboss machine. Oops, that was a little slip to the past, huh? And I'm just going to stack my sandwich together here. When you are working with dies, if you have the Stampin' Up! Cut and Emboss machine, you do need to make sure that you're using this layer number 2, because that just gives a little more thickness for when you're cutting the dies. And so I am now going to take my card front and lay it down on my plates. And I'm taking the largest circle die from the Stylish Shapes dies. There's 5 different circles, and I'm using, actually in this card, the 4th and 5th largest dies. Would help if you could see it. The 4th and 5th largest dies anyhow in here. And so I've got just a piece of washi tape that I'm using to hold my die in place. I want to make sure I've got it centered here, and so this washi tape just gives me a little security in being able to do that. So let me grab my top plate, and you can see these are well loved. They still work. If I'm working on foil, I will grab a clean uncut plate, because then I don't get all the creases and images on my foil. And that is it for the die cutting that we need to do. I've already cut out an extra very vanilla circle. So let me move my machine down to the floor here. So you can see that I can lift up, and I do go a little bit slow when I'm removing the washi tape, because on occasion it can catch the edge of the paper and tear it, and we don't want that to happen. And now I'm just going to pop that circle out. So here's what I meant when I said I don't want tape on this part, because I want to be able to reuse it. Here's the center from the first card I made and the center from this card. So I want to make sure I'm saving those 2 pieces for another card. All right, now it's time to start our stamping. And as you know, I like to try to do this first so that it can dry, but I did want to show you the die cutting as well. So with this card, I'm going to repeat the same stamp with the floral image that I did before. And so I am going to be using my big floral image, and I am going to pull in my Calypso Coral ink as well as my Lost Lagoon ink. and ink up these two pieces. Now, when I was doing this, I kind of did it both ways, and I found it was actually easier to ink up my Lost Lagoon stamp, or my Lost Lagoon color first. And so I'm just bringing it up to the top of the stem. If I get any on the flower, I can go ahead and take that off. Not so concerned right now about the lower part of the leaves because they aren't going to show anyhow. And then I'm going to repeat the process using my Calypso Coral to get the flowers inked up in that color. And so I'm just kind of gently tapping until I'm sure I've got everything inked up. Okay, set that aside, and now I'm going to take my stamp and stamp it down onto that very vanilla circle that I die cut earlier. I am using a piece of scrap paper because obviously I'm stamping off the circle and I don't want to get the ink on my desk. And then I'm going to real quick grab my Simply Chamois here and wipe off my stamp. And the reason for that is I need to come back now and just catch a couple of the leaves to add a little bit of depth to that card there. And so to do that, it's best if you stamp or ink up just one color of leaf at a time, or one leaf at a time. And so I'm going to do this one first. And I'm primarily focused again on getting the leaf and not the stem. If you happen to go off a little bit like I did here, just grab your Simply Chamois here and wipe off the edge of your stamp, and then any color that got picked up here. And I am going to take most of it off of the stem just because then I don't have to worry about being absolutely perfect on my stamped image. All right, so I know I've got this leaf inked up, so I'm just going to lay it down as close as I can on top of the stem. And that just adds the leaf there. It's not going to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be, but at least it's adding a little bit of color. All right, cleaning off that again, and I'm going to grab this leaf here now. And you can see I've got a little bit of that on the edge too. I'm not worried about that. That's part of the design of the card. And I'm doing kind of a lousy job. I did much better when I wasn't on camera in terms of not catching the edges of my stamp. I think I might just do that all over again. That was an awful lot of ink to remove. All right, let's try this again. Now, sometimes too, if you have ink spots left over from paper pumpkin kits or something like that, those can be good stamps for doing this type of inking up of the bigger stamps, just because it's a little smaller and you have more control over it. I actually think I do have a Lost Lagoon in my stamp spots, but didn't dig it out. All right. That's much better. So again, now I've got this leaf inked up, and I'm just going to do the same thing by laying it down close to that stem and inking it up. Again, I'm just trying to add a little more detail to that circle, not looking for anything super fancy. And that is all I need to do. Now, I did get a little bit of an ink mark there from the edge of my stamp. Don't worry, I've got ribbon I'm going to embellish with. It'll be covered up. Okay, now it's time to start assembling. So the pieces that we're going to need will be this, and these pieces. The first thing I want to do is fold my Very Vanilla. Now this card is going to kind of go inside our card and be in backwards opening card is sort of what it's going to feel like. So we're creating the Valley Mountain fold. We're going to fold it this way and then fold it back. It helps to have a good burnished edge there just to keep things nice and crisp on our folds. And then we're going to insert this or adhere this to the inside of our card. And that's just going to go on as you would any normal piece of cardstock in the front of your card or in the inside of your card. And because this is going to get pulled, I am putting some adhesive onto the sides of my card. And again, I'm looking at opposite corners just to make sure I've got things lined up. And I feel pretty good about that. So I will adhere it. Grab this little piece of designer series paper because I'm going to use that to decorate that piece. Remember, with the adhesive, it's gentle pressure and that quick check mark. I find that if I press too hard on it, I do end up having to kind of get it started again. So we'll adhere this. Put it down just a second too soon here. We'll get it there and we'll get it there. And we're good. Okay. This next step is really important, not because it's difficult, but because it's going to help you get the circle piece placed correctly. I want you to have the card closed when you're doing this step, and then just take your tape runner and run it over this half of the circle. And I actually try to kind of make a curve in mine. And that way you're not going to have any adhesive sticking out anywhere you don't want it because it's all within that circle. And then I just take my cardstock, that circle that we created when we made our window, and I add that to here. Now, if you wanted to, you could use one of your other circles that you've got instead. If you wanted to kind of go with a different pattern, you could do that. Or if you wanted to have the same pattern, you could do that. If you choose to do that, you may want to look closely at how you place it so that your cut marks line up with the flowers, if you've got a pattern like that. And if you're planning to use this same piece of designer series paper, also it would be fine then to glue the entire back of your designer paper so that it sticks. I would still recommend that you adhere it to your cardstock just because it's going to be a thicker, more sturdy piece of paper that is part of our card here. What do you think? Do you think I should go ahead and use the designer series paper here or let it go? I'll show you what it's going to look like. If I keep it here, it'll look like that. I think I need that difference. Never mind. I've already answered my own question. So I'm going to adhere this onto here, and I am going to use dimensionals just to pop it up a little bit. And for a circle this size, I tend to use kind of, I was going to say one in each corner, but that doesn't really make sense when I have a circle with no corners. I just put 4 on there in a square shape, I guess I can say. And so I will pull my backings off. It was a long day at work today. I don't think my brain is fully functioning right. Okay, so we'll put that in the middle here, just like so. And, you know, I didn't do this on my first card, but that was probably more of an oversight than anything. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of Winkostella to our flowers here in the center, because you can never have too much sparkle, in my opinion, especially when it's a mess-free sparkle like the Winkostella. I'll have to go back and do that on my other card too. Don't know what I was thinking. All right. So anyhow, I've got that punched up now on dimensionals. It just adds a little bit of depth to the card. And then I'm using the Happy Birthday Sentiment this time from the Inked and Tiled stamp set. My first card, I used the Just a Note to create a little message down here. This time I want to use the Happy Birthday. And so I've just got a scrap piece of very vanilla cardstock. And I'm going to try to stamp it straight and close to the one edge. That way I only have to trim off one end. A little bit crooked. Good thing I have a back side. Flip it over. And I think that is better. So we will go ahead and use that. And actually, I'm not real happy with how dark those two P's are in the Happy, but I had a piece already stamped, so I'm going to go ahead and use that because I think it's a better image. That's just me. And this time, instead of putting this down in the corner, I think I'm just going to kind of put it centered and then centered below that circle. Because I've already got this popped up, I don't feel like I need to pop that up, but that, whoops, is certainly something that you could consider doing. So I'll just run a little bit of adhesive on here. Place that in the center. And my final touch is going to be adding a little ribbon using the satin edged ribbon. This is one that was in the catalog last year as well. And I'm going to try while I'm live here to tie a bow by myself. If that doesn't work, I will quick go grab my bow making stand. But I think I got it. And I'm just going to keep pulling the tails in and kind of twisting the bows so that they're both laying the right direction. All right. Then I'll just grab my scissors and angle the tails a little bit. And that's my little bow. And I'm just going to put that in the middle here. And like I said, it kind of covers up where I went off just a titch on my inking. And I think my kittens have taken my roll of glue dots. I find that things disappear quite a bit when they're around. So I'll have to find them. But in the meantime, I'm just going to go ahead and use my glue dots left over from a paper pumpkin kit. I really need to do a better job of hiding things from these kittens because they just get into everything. I'm going to pull, whoops, I didn't mean to pull two at the same time. Two glue dots, just place them down here. Actually want it just a little bit lower if I can. So just gonna pull that one off altogether. I need it to cover my mistake, so I need to go down just a titch lower. There we go. Yeah, when I got home from work on Friday, I discovered that they found the toilet paper roll and had taken it off the roll, unrolled most of it, shredded some of it, carried pieces around. It was all over the basement floor, and then I was even finding pieces that they had carried upstairs. So it was kind of funny, but, you know, they're kittens. All right, there we go. So, two simple cards to make, but can really be changed up just by the colors that you're using, the designer paper that you're using, that type of thing. Open it up, you've got lots of room to write. And yet you have a really pretty card with a little bit of pop on it just by creating that window in your card. I hope you enjoyed this card and I've inspired you to give it a try. If you do, please be sure to post it in the comments. I think that we can help each other with our creativity by sharing our ideas sometimes. And welcome you to post it on my Facebook page here as well. Take care, everyone. Have a great week. Hey, Donna, thanks for the love the design comment. I appreciate that. Take care, everybody. Have a great week, and we will see you next Monday for Make It Monday. Bye-bye.